there, my friend. If you are the parent of a toddler or a preschooler and you have been wondering about the idea of maybe introducing chores with your kids as they grow older, today I'm going to talk about the benefits of chores and how to get started with little ones so you have smoother sailing down the road. Let's get to it. Let's talk about some of the many benefits that children experience as a result of doing chores. Now, let me preface this to say, is your child going to like doing chores? When they're little, yes. When they get to those elementary years, not so much. But if you stick to it with your expectations, these benefits are really going to help them as they enter into adulthood. So the first benefit is it helps increase independence. And that is something that we want for our kids, most of us, as they start to grow older. We want them to be able to just kind of take care of their business with less and less support from us. And that is something that they learn from doing chores. The next benefit is it helps build self-esteem. So using myself as an example, I really hate cleaning my house, but I'm going to tell you, when it's done, I feel good that I accomplished something that day. It's the same for our kids. Successfully completing tasks, even if they're tasks we don't want to do, helps them to show that they're able to take care of themselves. The next benefit, one of my personal favorites, is that it helps them to understand perseverance and build that work ethic. And that's really what we want for our kids too, right? We want them to be able to go out into the work environment and be able to be successful in their careers, whether that be them going to college and having to work through classes that they really don't like and completing homework assignments and studying, to being on a job, working with others and having to do maybe some of those lower level kinds of job tasks as they hit the entry level positions, and being able to persevere through those, working hard, knowing that that hard work is going to get them ahead. Another benefit of kids who are doing chores is it really helps them understand teamwork, especially if you think about it in the home environment. We're all working together to maintain this home and make sure that it's running efficiently. Those kids who have had that experience in the home environment tend to be much better team workers. And we have seen that firsthand again at our restaurant, that those kids who have a strong work ethic understand that we are all here together to try to make this, in our instance, restaurant work more smoothly. So they're more likely to step in and help their coworkers when needed. Like if we get a big rush or something like that, they might take over some tables or help clear tables, even if they're not there to do bussing that day. So another benefit is it helps kids to understand how families operate. And by that I mean that all family members work together for the greater good. So having them do some basic chores around the house to help with the running of that household really can help build the ties and the community within your family. And I think that's a really important aspect, especially nowadays when families are feeling so disconnected. Having your kids come out and help out with yard work occasionally, having them clear the tables, having them help out with washing the dishes. And I'm not saying when I'm talking chores to like overwhelm kids with chores. I mean, they've got a lot on their plates with homework, but they have to have some tasks around the house so they're contributing to the running of the home. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this contribution and whether or not you pay them to do the chores in a minute. And finally, kids who do chores tend to have better planning and time management skills. And now, I mean, I don't know about you personally, but I prefer to do all of my chores early in the day, so then the rest of the day I can do tasks that are more interesting to me. So that is something that I learned from doing chores as a child, is get them done, get them over with, and then play. Now, having said this, your kids may find a system that works better for them. Maybe they do their chores before they go to bed because they'd rather play all day. We have to allow them to figure these things out. So as the parent of a toddler or preschooler, my advice to you is to start sooner rather than later. Toddlers in particular love helping around the house. So the sooner you can make this a norm in your daily routine that you're going to help me with these things, the more you're instilling and making it just a part of a routine and not some kind of job assignment that you're giving them. So start sooner rather than later. My second tip, as your children grow older and start to maybe kind of balk at the idea of doing those chores, is to use enforceable statements. So if your little one comes home and let's say clearing the table was a task that is assigned to them, then they want to go play outside and they say, well, I'm going to go outside. You can use an enforceable statement like, you may feel free to go outside and play once you've cleared the table. When we use enforceable statements, a lot of times it makes it a little bit easier to avoid the power struggles because we're not necessarily saying no to them going outside. We're just using an enforceable statement. Absolutely, you can go outside once you've cleared the table. You get a lot more compliance that way. So, all right, my next tip, to pay or not to pay. Don't pay them to do their chores. So let's say that their tasks are to get up and brush their teeth. You want them to make their bed. They have to clear the table after they eat their breakfast. You don't want to pay them to do those things. So I'm going to tell you what we did with our kids. We didn't pay them to do their chores, but if they wanted to earn extra money, I would pay them to do my chores. If they wanted to earn a couple of bucks and they wanted to do my vacuuming or do the dusting or clean the windows, absolutely, I'm going to reward you for doing my jobs. But I didn't pay them for doing their own chores because I wanted them to understand that sometimes there are things in life that you just have to do that kind of suck and you just have to get them done. And nobody's going to give you a pat on the back for doing them. You just got to do them because they need to be done. Another tip, be a good role model. Happily do your chores, get them done. Talk about how great it feels to have completed all of your chores for the day or your to-dos. You don't have to call them chores. You can call them to-dos. That's what I do a lot of times. But letting them see, wow, I just cleaned the whole house. Now I can sit down and relax. This feels so good to know that my house is clean and that I've taken care of the tasks that were on my to-do list today. So another tip is to surprise them with a day off every now and then. We did this with our kids. There would be some days where I'd say, hey, you know what? You guys get the day off from your chores. I will take care of your chores today. You guys just relax and have a good day. Now, here's a tip, right? The inside scoop. A lot of times I did this on days that I knew were going to be really difficult for them to get those chores done. Maybe they had a recital or something else going on, or maybe they hadn't been feeling all that great the day before. But the nice thing about giving them a day off, I mean, who doesn't want a day off, is that kids love to reciprocate that. So there were plenty of times that our kids stepped up to the plate and did some of our chores without expecting to be paid, giving us a day off too. Again, that builds that family community, right? That bond between family members of being thoughtful and caring and taking care of each other. My next tip is to praise them when they successfully complete their tasks by using you statements. We really want to think about what we're saying to our kids, especially young kids as they're growing, because our voices become their internal dialogue. What we want from our kids is we want them to feel good about the things that they're doing. We don't want it to be that they're doing it because it makes us proud. I mean, it does make us proud. But I would rather have kids thinking to themselves, yeah, I did a good job with that. Yeah, I worked through that. Yeah, I completed that and it feels good to me. So when your child completes a task, look at that. You made your bed. You must be so proud of yourself. That looks fantastic. Look at you go. You're such a hard worker, right? You're instilling this dialogue that will then go running through their head as they grow older instead of, I'm so proud of you. I like it when you do these things. I'm not saying we can't say that sometimes to our kids, but really we want to focus on you statements. You are such a hard worker. You should be proud of yourself. So think about how you provide them that praise and the feedback when they do successfully complete tasks. And the next tip is be okay with less than perfect. In the beginning, are they going to make their beds really, really great that a quarter bounces off it? No. Is that okay? Yes. It's more about the idea of them trying to complete those tasks. Over time, you can work on refining how well they're doing those tasks as they grow older and gain more skills. The whole idea, again, is just to have them helping out. Last tip is to use a visual schedule or a chore chart with your children. Visuals can make a big difference in them being able to successfully complete the task, as well as creating more independence in their ability to do that. So I'm a big fan of visual schedules and charts, visuals with young children. I really think it helps them be able to be more successful at completing tasks and understanding what's going on. So when thinking about introducing chores to young children, I suggest starting with like a daily picture schedule, and I've got a whole video on this, with your toddler, right? Just kind of walking them through the idea of we're going to get dressed, we're going to have breakfast, we're going to, go brush our teeth. So it's more of just a schedule of what the day is going to be like. As they get used to this, as they get a little bit older, as their comprehension starts to take off, then you can turn it into a to-do list or a chore chart. I like to-dos because I make to-do lists as grown-ups. I don't usually call them chores. Anyhow, so you can then transition them with a very similar kind of visual chart to having it be more of a chore chart. So we're going to do our homework, and then you can have your child, use a dry erase marker and check it off. I've had some parents that as their children complete a task, the kids would just take them off and pop them in an envelope and then put them back on the next day. You can use reusable stickers, whatever works best for you and for your child. Another tip, and this is a really important one, is to be consistent. You need to keep your expectations for your children doing these routines the same. If you start to waver on sometimes we're going to have you do your chores, sometimes we're not, then you're going to have difficulty with getting consistency with your kids. And one thing, all right, so what kind of tasks do we assign young kids? Again, I like to, with toddlers, just kind of do more things that are a daily routine, that we're going to eat our breakfast, but then we're going to brush our teeth, right? That's something that ultimately, like for my kids, I wanted them to do without me telling them to do it. We're going to pick up our toys and clean up our mess before we sit down to have lunch. Again, I wanted that to become a routine and a habit that they did over time with less direction and support from me. Okay, so what kinds of chores and tasks would we think about doing for young kids? Well, again, think about what would you want your toddler doing by the time they're 5? We have to set the groundwork now. What do you want your preschooler doing by the time they go to first grade, right? So here are some examples. I wanted my kids to be able to go in and brush their teeth after they were done with their breakfast. I wanted my kids to clear their plates off of the table and put them in the sink. I wanted them to be able to get themselves dressed. Those were all things that went on their daily schedule and then ultimately onto their chore chart. I should kind of discern the difference between the two. The daily schedule for me was just more of an introduction and a preparation to eventually turning it into their to-do list, so that they had it there and can use it independent of me and know what the expectations were and what they needed to do each day. I hope that's clear. So anyhow, some tasks that you can do with a toddler. You can have them help pick up the toys. You can have them help with laundry. They love putting things into wash baskets and into dryers and washers. You can have them help you with the dishes. You can help them to learn how to clear the table or load things into the dishwasher. Like I said earlier, toddlers love to be helpers. So what would be some tasks that you could start implementing with a preschooler, especially as they're approaching kindergarten? You could have them do the same things I mentioned with the toddler, but also getting themselves dressed, making their bed, feeding the family dog or the goldfish, packing their own lunch, and with some help and support from you, or picking out their clothes for the next day or prepping their backpacks. So think about those tasks. If they're learning how to do these things from the ages of 2 up until the ages of 5, how prepared are they going to be for school, right? How much work is that daily routine in the morning, that breakfast routine, going to be for you if they're already kind of on autopilot? So there you have it. There are my thoughts and tips on the idea of incorporating chores into the daily routines of toddlers and preschoolers, as well as the many benefits that you will get out of having your little ones start early. Okay, you guys, if you found this information helpful, make sure you give me a like. It really helps the algorithm get my information out in front of other parents. I've put a link to my Etsy store down below if you're interested in checking out my chore chart. Otherwise, you can make your own, check out Pinterest. You can create what works best for your family. All right, you guys, until next time,